Ooh, welcome back, Weirdos and Weeboos, the channel to Push and Doge. But today, I think I want to try and cover a different kind of video. Not only have I not really made that much Bloons content in a while, but also my Bloons content has mostly been on battles so far, or BTD6. And that's because I don't really know what videos I would make on BTD6, even though I'm not opposed to the idea. However, I actually just had an idea recently, which I think I like. You see, I realized there is something that I suppose I uniquely do with balloons, and that is I have a fascination with underused towers, quote unquote. And I feel like most of the underused towers in the game are actually very strong, just only in the right situation. I'm not saying necessarily in all cases that means these towers are secretly OP and that people should be using them and they're dumb for not using them. I don't think that's the case with most of them, although I do think it's the case with some of these towers that I think are severely underrated. I'm especially interested in doing this now that I look back and I realize, wow, since I kind of took a break from the game and came back, they've done a good job of balancing a lot of towers. Almost every single upgrade in the game I considered useless has been buffed to hell and back, and now I'm really left with not that many towers I can think of off the top of my head that I would genuinely consider, like, bad. Like, when I think of bad towers, one of the first things that comes to mind is the Wizlord Phoenix. But then the Wizlord Phoenix has received some massive damage buffs and some massive price decreases that honestly makes it a pretty respectable 5th tier now. I guess I also think of Bomb Blitz, but Bomb Blitz now makes the base tower so much stronger that sometimes it is actually worthwhile in combination with buffs. Just going off the top of my head, the only upgrade I can think of which even might still be bad, is Preemptive Strike. And even then, I haven't really tested Preemptive Strike much, so maybe I'll eat my words on that later. Not to mention, I was always one who liked to stick up for Spirit of the Forest, so it's nice to see Spirit of the Forest finally being at the strength it deserves to be. So you can probably see where this is going. I want to start making some videos where essentially I do CHIMPS runs on some relatively difficult maps, or maybe some intermediate ones, we'll see. And essentially I just show off, hey, if you're wondering why this upgrade seems so bad, this is how you make it good. And if you're watching the footage in the background, you can probably already see where this one's going. The Super Monkey Fanclub, which is probably one of the most unpopular upgrades in the game. And I can completely understand why, because I barely use it myself. At first I just thought, yeah, I don't like ability towers, which I really didn't. In BTD5, I really hated them. Although the longer I've played Bloons Tower Defense going into BTD6, I started to, you know, have some ability towers grow on me, and slowly I've gotten to the point where I'm fine with most of them now. But I never really got over the Super Monkey Fanclub. I just didn't like the idea that I had to rely on this ability, even though there are many other ability-based towers which I don't have a problem with. And so I had to take a moment to stop and think two things. One, why is it that I still hate the Super Monkey Fanclub, even though it seems it's not just because it's an ability, because now there are many ability-based towers that I actually really do like. And how is it that you can use it to its fullest potential, considering that Ninja Kiwi has done a very good job so far, making a lot of the most underpowered towers in the game much more balanced? It does make you wonder, is this tower really still bad, or do we just still hate it when it's actually good? It's certainly happened before. I will try and shut up about it soon, because I know I've said it multiple times before in previous videos. But way before people realized how fucking overpowered Bouncing Bullet Sniper was, I was saying Bouncing Bullet Sniper is fucking broken and you're all crazy for not using it. Just because it was an underpowered and overpriced upgrade on launch doesn't mean that it's an overpriced and underpowered upgrade now. It received, I don't even know how many fucking buffs in a row, something like 10. And by like the second buff, it was already a good upgrade. And then because no one would use it, because it already had the reputation of being the stupid upgrade from launch day, we saw people completely ignoring Bouncing Bullet when Bouncing Bullet snipers with Alchemist were already able to solo rounds like 63 while having infinite range of the entire map, popping leads and popping camo, all for only a few thousand. I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but I just want to bring that up as an example of a tower that everyone considered garbage until months later when people finally figured out, oh wait, shit, this is one of the most broken towers in the game. So that's why I want to do this series, because hey, who knows, we might be sleeping on a whole bunch of other towers just because we think, oh, that's this stupid tower. Yeah, no one uses that one, while not actually keeping track of how many buffs it's received. That being said, I haven't really been paying that much attention to the patch notes recently, but I haven't really seen many buffs to Super Monkey Fanclub. So is it actually already good? Well, it certainly doesn't feel like it when I use it casually, but maybe I'm using it wrong. So that's what this CHIMPS run is about. So before I started this CHIMPS run, I had to think for a bit, okay, what is it that we're going to use the Super Monkey Fanclub for? You see, personally, I am not a fan of towers that just do a little bit of everything. I think it's usually much more effective to get something like, as a basic example, a really good single target damaging tower and a really good group target damaging tower than just getting one tower that does a bit of everything. I feel like a lot of these all-rounder towers are often less cost-efficient than simply getting a tower that specializes in one thing and a tower that specializes in the other. So a lot of the time when I'm looking for underrated upgrades that might be stronger than we think, I'm not looking at, oh, how powerful is it, as vague as that sounds. I'm usually looking for, okay, what can this upgrade do that literally no other upgrade in the game can do for me? I'm looking for that irreplaceable utility that makes this upgrade specifically better than the other hundreds of upgrades in the game. And at first, I really didn't know what that would be for Super Monkey Fanclub. The only thing I could think is, I suppose it is a massive spike in power, which is of course why it's so expensive and why the ability has such a long cooldown. So maybe if I can just make a build that benefits a lot from having its power be really weak and then suddenly spike to really strong, but then that's quite vague and I can't really think of many things that would benefit much from that. For a while I was a bit stumped until I realized it. Super Monkey Fanclub is probably the single best tower in the game for simply firing as many projectiles on the screen at once as fast as possible. And I know that some of you are going to furrow your brow right now and be like, what? What about the Sky Shredder? What about the Tack Zone? And don't get me wrong, those are also very, very good for that purpose. But you got to remember that both of those examples do not aim their shots, which means a lot of them miss, whereas these shots are aimed. And considering the fact you get 10 Super Monkeys with one fan club, they often will all be hitting their targets and they often will be firing about as many darts as a Sky Shredder or a Attack Shooter. So you can think of it as a Sky Shredder or Attack Shooter that actually hits all its shots, just on an ability-based cooldown. This makes it pretty obvious what's going to be good then, doesn't it? What we need to do to make this ability good is provide it the support it needs in terms of buffs and debuffs, so that each individual dart thrown by all the Super Monkeys gets as much damage out of it as possible. Because if we can just turn these darts that only deal 1 damage per shot into darts that deal 3 damage per shot, that is the equivalent of 30 Super Monkeys we're getting. That's an enormous spike in damage. As well as that though, we do have the issue of these Dart Monkeys cannot pop lead. They can maybe see camo if we get the bottom path upgrade, but not lead. Alchemists can help here, but they attack so fast that they'll use up the out buff too quickly, and when we get to DDTs, Alchemists alone won't be enough. The Plasma Monkey Fan Club allows us to pop leads, but then not only would we be relying on a pretty slow ability cooldown to pop leads, but on top of that, we then wouldn't be able to pop purples, which might overlap the DDTs on round 95. All this said, it sounds like we're going to have to get an MIB village, which is going to be tough because we're also going to need a primary expertise to give all these monkeys their damage boosts, their ability cooldown reductions, and their pierce boosts, which is going to be necessary, absolutely. When you take all this to account and step back, you can realize why the Super Monkey Fan Club is simultaneously kind of underrated, but also unpopular for a very valid reason. To use this upgrade effectively, you not only have to invest a lot into a tower, which is kind of weak, you not only have to deal with the massive spike in cost from only 400 for the upgrade before to nearly 8,000. You not only have to rely on a very slow ability cooldown, but you also need to get a primary expertise village, an MIB village, alchemists around the Dart Monkeys to buff them up, probably multiple of them. You're probably going to need embrittlement as well. You probably would like a glue storm. You're going to need some slows for the Moabs. You're going to need some slows for the balloons. And when you all add this up, you're going to quickly realize, holy shit, this is a lot of setup. And it's really hard to have enough space for all this setup. You need at least 10 Dart Monkeys to be making the most out of Super Monkey Fan Club. And 10 is already a lot, but those 10 Dart Monkeys have to be crammed into the range of 2 villages while also having alchemists around to buff them, while also being able to shoot in the range of where embrittlement will be effective. All this setup is enough to make your head spin. Oh yeah, and you might be wondering if alchemists are really worthwhile with this strategy, considering that the buff gets lost so quickly since they shoot so fast. Well, it is still worthwhile because the fact that it's getting used up quickly does mean it's using the entire buff every time you throw it. But on top of that, it's actually also because of AMD, believe it or not. Yeah, Acidic Mixture Dip, which is usually a pretty useless upgrade and mostly just gotten to get Berserker Brew, or to be able to pop leads with a tower that usually can't, actually becomes really useful with the Plasma Monkey Fan Club, no joke. The reason why is all that Acidic Mixture Dip does, besides allowing you to pop leads, is give you towers +1 damage towards ceramics and leads per shot. And because it's such a weak buff, it stacks up much more quickly than the buff from the Berserker Brew, which means that you can save up tons of stacks of AMD on towers and have it so the next 50 shots or so will have +1 damage to ceramics or Moabs. And when they shoot as fast as they do with the Super Monkey or the Plasma Monkey Fan Club, those get used up really quickly, which again isn't a bad thing, because usually AMD is applied so fast that you can't even use it fast enough. Sometimes you can even hold off on using the Fanclub and save it until later, and then once you press the button, you'll have so much AMD stacked up that you'll be having an enormous burst of damage when the ability goes off, at least to mobs and ceramics. Anyway, all that said, it's pretty clear why this is an unpopular strategy. Extremely high upfront cost, a bit unintuitive that we have to use Dart Monkeys to the late game, a lot of buffs and debuffs needed to make it work, which might not be intuitive to newer players, and just generally, what map do you have the space to stuff all this stuff into that's actually a difficult map? Well, my answer to that would be Underground. I know it's not an expert map or anything, but Underground's still a pretty difficult map to beat on Chimps. I would say it's on the upper end of advanced, and to be completely honest, I need to rebeat this map anyway. I say rebeat, I got to round 99 on Chimps on this map previously, back when Moab Mauler spam was OP. I personally wasn't a fan of the strategy, but I thought I'd give it a go, and yeah, it was pretty good up until DDTs, and then yeah, then it wasn't very good anymore. It was very bad, in fact, against DDTs. Anyway, I couldn't be bothered to get all the way back there because the early game on this map is usually painful. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't exactly easy this time around, but it was certainly a lot easier being able to use Dart Monkey spam at the start because it would actually go well into my late game strategy. There are many reasons I picked this map. For one, obviously, the biggest reason is we can cram all our defense in the center, which means we have more than enough room to place all these towers and get all our buffs. The second reason, though, is because this early game is really hard if you don't have lots of towers placed, because oftentimes you die not actually having enough power to defeat the balloons, but just simply because towers are shooting the wrong goddamn targets. And so if you only have 1 or 2 towers, even if they attack really fast, all they have to do is shoot the wrong target one time and you die. However, with these Dart Monkeys spammed everywhere, we've got so many towers hitting so many different targets that it's much less common that an important target doesn't get hit. I guess last thing for the general strategy I'm going for here to mention is Geraldo. Why am I using him? He doesn't really have any inherent synergy with Dart Monkeys, does he? Well, not necessarily, I suppose. But when you look at all the heroes in the game, there aren't really many at all that do have good synergy with Dart Monkeys. I would say the best other candidate is Gwendolyn, being able to give them lead popping and extra PS with Heat It Up. But even Gwendolyn, I feel like if I did use her, it would mostly be for a level 3 and level 10 ability and not so much for the PS buff. No, I'm going with Geraldo, not only because Geraldo is the most flexible hero in the game, and if I ever find myself stuck on a round where it's just nearly beatable but I just can't quite do it, then all I need to do is place 1 blade trap and suddenly that round is very, very possible. But more importantly, Geraldo does actually have some pretty good synergies with the Super Monkey Fanclub. Not only does he have the Sharpening Stone, which is a very powerful and very cheap buff, and is usually only made weak by the fact that a lot of the more powerful towers in the game don't synergize with it. However, the Super Monkey Fanclub does. At level 15, the Sharpening Stone doesn't just grant pierce, it also grants extra damage per shot, which is especially good. The Jar of Pickles is both going to be really good to survive the early game and really good in the late game. And the Jerry's Fire is not only an extremely powerful way for a cheap price to get through the mid game in situations where you should have really died for not investing in more defense, but on top of that, it's going to be great for dealing with leads in the mid game when we're probably not going to be able to place that many lead popping towers. That being said, I can't see the screen right now, so I'm guessing we're getting near the end of the footage. I should probably explain myself. My plan here was to get a Plasma Monkey Fanclub, but I kind of spent too much money on support. I know that you get so much money in the last 10 rounds of the game compared to the other rounds of the game, so I thought I would have enough, but no, I came up a bit short to be able to get the Plasma Monkey Fanclub. So unfortunately, we did end this game with just 2 fan clubs. However, I don't think it was exactly not worth it. Obviously, we still beat it on Chimps, but on top of that, we got some good support towers with the money that we weren't able to spend. And ultimately, I'm kind of curious to see if maybe getting this Glue Storm ultimately led to more damage on the bat at the end on round 100 than it would have if we didn't get the Glue Storm and instead got the Plasma Monkey Fanclub. Just because that Glue Storm is +2 damage per dart, which really is going to stack up fast. Anyway, with that said, is the Super Monkey Fanclub underrated? Sorta. There aren't many maps that it works on, but the maps that it does work on, it is a really powerful ability. And especially if you use it with Geraldo so you can get the Rejuve Potion, it is more than enough power. It is more than enough firepower to carry you through Fucking hell, what the hell? It is more than enough firepower to carry you through Chimps, even if you aren't able to afford the 5th tier.